Council Member, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Council Member, first start, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I took a very unconventional path to politics. Never thought I would be an elected official or even work within the field of government. It wasn't until the summer of 2020, during the protests of George Floyd, where I left my quarantine and took to the streets to advocate for racial justice and started organizing on the ground of New York. Founded an activist collective that was advocating for racial justice here in the streets of New York. We led some of the largest protests, nonviolent protests that took place in the city at the time, and we're honing in a lot of our advocacy on wanting to see a reinvestment within communities of color and most especially Black communities. I started honing in a lot of my advocacy on the powers of the New York City Council and city government. And when I saw that my uh, former council member, current at the time, did not share my same views, I decided to say F it and run myself and ran a uphill underdog like campaign against four other people. One of them being a candidate from this 40-year Democratic establishment here in Bed-Stuy, at the age of 22, and I ended up winning. And that was 4 years ago, and I'm here now. I've learned a lot, I've done a lot, and I'm really proud of my journey that got me here.
Council Member, what led you to take on the fight against Goliath in the real estate board in New York in terms of the broker fee, the Fair Act, which is the proper name? What was it? Was it you that maybe had to rent an apartment at one point, and you said, "Wow, this broker fee is exorbitant," or was it a constant, constituents coming in and complaining? What led you to do that?
It's a mix of both. And, I think that, and I'm not the first to say this, whole policy is personal. And, I think I keep my ears on the ground often. And, a lot of my friends who don't work in politics, share their sentiments about what's not working in New York City. And yeah, when I was looking for an apartment in 2024 or 2023, I kept on encountering this broker fee that I was, being forced to pay to an individual that I never hired or sometimes even met. And I was very frustrated by that fact and, started thinking about why New York City was one of the only cities in the country where this system took place and wanted to take action on it. And many people felt very passionate about this issue. It became this issue that spoke to this economic populist agenda that I care about and that a lot of Democrats and people in general are deeply craving. And I decided to take it on as one of my primary issues in the council. And that's it was a 2-year long journey of organizing around it, around pushing back against a multi-million-dollar lobby that has beaten a bill like this in the past. But I used a very creative strategy to get it through, to galvanize my colleagues and the people of New York City to get it past the finish line.
What do you think was it? What do you think? I know that you've been the social media. I read an article about you where it talked about how you organize via TikTok and social media and the
Yeah.
non-traditional methods. Would you say that's what did it?
I think it was a mix of both old school political organizing and new school political organizing. I knew that in order to take on the beast that was Rebney, that there would have had to be a proper blend of both. So not only were we working with some of the largest labor unions in the city to get them to sign on to the bill. In support of the bill, my colleagues to get them to sign on and support the bill, but I wanted to build public pressure. And no one was doing this in New York City at the time. I think I really originated how elected officials are now using social media, and that was, speaking to people, very candidly and authentically through the lens of short form media, and telling them to care about things that would impact their lives. And one of those was this broker fee bill. And I made several videos, a couple of which went viral, with action steps that told New Yorkers who, have felt disengaged by politics and government before to get involved and be part of this movement to pass a bill. And people called their council members, people showed up in droves to city council hearings, which I've never done before. And that application of creating public pressure really helped and aided me in getting this bill passed.
Councilmember, talk a little bit about now the mayoral race and the primary. I know you were instrumental. A lot of people sought your endorsement. A lot of people sought appearances with you where you would do the video shorts to sort of support them. Again, you remember, I don't know if you remember the old Will Fresh Prince, Will Smith, parents just don't understand. What is it that
Mhm.
the older generation isn't getting in terms of the outcome of this primary? What again? It seems like it's lost. There is a real divide between the older generation and the younger generation, as we can tell
Yeah,
and see with polling.
yeah.
What give me your thoughts on that as someone who's the first Gen Z elected to the city council, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of political pundits are brushing this off as, Zoran was able to do this simply because of social media. And I think it goes beyond that. And I know that people have very strong feelings about progressives or leftists or democratic socialists, but we as Democrats got our asses handed to us in November of last year with Republicans sweeping, the three branches of government. And a reason for that was because they were running on this this platform of economic populism. Whether they believed in that economic populism or not, they were speaking to voters and telling voters what they wanted to hear. And a lot of that was lost within the Democratic Party. We were fighting these culture wars, these social issues that didn't really put money into the pockets of Americans. And what shifted in this race was not only, a robust social media strategy from the Mom Donnie campaign or a charismatic candidate, but a candidate that was speaking to the issues that New Yorkers wanted to hear. And those issues revolved around affordability. That's why I wanted to pass a bill around broker fees and why housing is one of my main priorities, and why, Zoran won this Democratic primary. There was a simple platform surrounded around the idea of affordability that resonated with the voters of New York. Not only progressives voted for him, not only Democratic socialists, but Democrats as a whole, people who voted for Trump even in the past election, because there was a candidate that was speaking to them frankly, and speaking to them about the issues that they cared most about.
Councilmember, what do you think of this search for a liberal Joe Rogan? As someone again who has a huge following and is heavily involved with social media, what do you think of that? Do you think that's what the party needs? Like, what are your thoughts
It's
on that quest?
rather than, I think that's an interesting question. Rather than finding an individual who has this platform and way of communicating that can galvanize people and energize them for the right, or to vote for Republicans. I think Democrats and the left needs to understand the power of good communicators. We need to uplift those good communicators. And what makes a good communicator isn't just someone who makes, again, flashy, fun videos, but someone who shares what people, or this new age of people, love about social media, and that's authenticity. Not only do you have to be frank to people, through these lenses of short form media or social media, but you need to hold these values that speak to what people want. They don't want BS. They don't want same old politicians who sound like robots. They want someone who can communicate the issues well to them and will also be a fighter for those issues as well. I do believe that instead of looking for one Joe Rogan of the left, the Democratic Party needs to uplift good communicators, even though those communicators are not centrists or moderates, right? We do see a lot of sidelining of leftists and progressives and democratic socialists. And I think that's why we sometimes, lose. Like, for example, when, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez was, seeking out the oversight chair, and was sidelined by her own party. That was a huge mistake. If Democrats are looking for the Joe Rogan of the left, they need to also uplift their own elected officials who have those amazing communication skills. For example, like what's happening right now with a lot of the Dem leadership in New York, especially some of our congressional representation, not endorsing Zoran yet, who's an excellent communicator who shares. A lot of what the values that the Democrats are allegedly looking for within a Joe Rogan of the left. But we won't find that unless we embrace the great communicators that we currently have.
Councilmember, there's another important race that's more of an insider's game in terms of the members' speakers race. Do you have a preferred person, or are you still
You know,
talking to the different people, different camps?
I believe that Crystal Hudson would be an excellent choice for Speaker of the New York City Council. Working with her over the past 4 years has been, incredible. I'm not sure if she's running or not yet, but if she's listening and hears this, I hope she knows that she has my support.
Councilmember, the other, I want to talk about your district. All politics is local.
Hmm.
Interesting dynamic there. You have the Congress member, who's the
Uh-huh.
minority leader, who's more of a mainstream Democrat, if you call it
Hmm.
that. You have the assembly member, who's more of a mainstream Democrat. There was a tough primary there with a member of the
Hmm.
DSA, I believe. You have Senator
Hmm.
Brisport, and you have yourself, who lean more progressive. And there's a contentious conversation around an affordable housing project. Talk about the local politics in Bedford Stuyvesant and Central Brooklyn, and in your district in general, and how you navigate that.
Absolutely. So my community, and this community is one that I grew up in, is seeing a lot of change, right? We saw the largest displacement of Black people from the years of 2010 to 2020 compared to any other community within New York City. We're seeing a lot of change and we need a lot of action, especially around housing. And I've been very outspoken champion for housing. I do believe all of the elected officials who represent this district should take that issue with the means of being all hands on deck. And some are doing a better job than others. We have a state assembly member, who is protesting against a 100% affordable housing HPD site, while we're seeing, our people displaced left and right. Assemblymember Zinnerman won her election a couple years ago by 475 votes, and that was in a race that I stayed out of. I think for me, old politics is local. I grew up in this neighborhood. I got into this game to serve my people, and I lead by prioritizing the issues that best serve the people who I represent. And housing's again a number one issue for me. And if there's a colleague of mine who overlaps in my district who does not share that same vision or is making my job very difficult, it is my job to see and walk their way out of office. So I will be definitely supporting any challenger against my state assembly member. I know that there are some ideological differences within this district, but and within this community. But my priority is doing the work, keeping people in their homes, and making this community as affordable, this community and city as affordable as it could possibly be. And I'm eager and always ready to work with my colleagues who are ready to do the same.
Council member, at the congressional level, there was the squad, right? Congressmember
Hmm.
Jamal Bowman, Congresswoman Ocasio Cortez, that sort
Hmm.
of had a plan and were working, basically to take or primary elected officials at the federal level that didn't align with their views and their politics. And I
Hmm.
understand, and I've seen that you, in your case, there's a council member in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, that you called out, and your local assembly member. Is there something in the plans like that for the city and state?
For the city and state, in
Yeah,
terms
meaning
of building a
meaning
squad.
organizing around these people that obviously are not.
Yeah,
in your opinion, serving the interests of the people? Meaning
you
something
know,
like the
it's
squad at the city state level.
what's so what's so different about this is that it's less ideological for me and more about people who are ready to do the work and be a good colleague. You know what I mean? I get along with and work even with colleagues of mine in government who share more moderate or more centrist views, right? But the fact that we're able to work together, or I can call their office and they pick up, or their constituents don't come to me, that's a bigger issue for me than who they vote for in the mayoral race, or in a primary. You know what I mean? I have again a colleague in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, who doesn't show up to work. Right? I think City and State, years ago rated her as one of the worst council members ever. Her constituents come to my office and blame me when things don't get done within her neighborhood. I don't really care whether it's someone who is a progressive or a moderate who represents that district. I just want someone to represent that district. So I think it's less so much about creating a new squad on the state or and city level. I just think that we need our people within these communities need representatives who will do the work, and do the work that would uplift and make their lives a lot easier. So that's my main priority.
Council member, people have been throwing your name around for a congressional run. Is
Are they
that?
doing that?
I'm sorry. Yes,
Are they doing that?
I've heard multiple people have read in different. That you're being mentioned as someone they like to see run for Congress. Is that a real thing? Is
Who
that
do
in
they
the
want me to
cards for
run
you?
against?
I'm sorry,
Who do they want me to run against?
Congress member Hakeem Jeffries.
I'm very focused on what I'm doing here in the council. I think there's so much work that needs to get done. Listen, I worked over the past 4 years under a terrible, corrupt mayor, and I'm eager to spend some time potentially working with a mayor that I can get along with. So that's one of my main focuses at the moment.
Councilmember, you've been generous with your time, and I want to hold it to the 20-minute mark. Talk about the race to the general now, and the nominee Zohran Mamdani. What are you thinking in terms of what you're going to do in the
Yeah,
upcoming months to help that effort? And what's the plan?
of course. So, I love our New York City press corps, and even our national political press corps. And they gotta get those headlines right until November. But this is Mamdani's race to lose. I, as a fan of New York City politics, cannot wait for these debates. I think we're going to hear some very outrageous one-liners. It's certainly going to be an entertaining race to watch, but the way that Mamdani is coalescing the Democratic base, whether it be unions or the chair of the Brooklyn Democratic Party, again, I really do see this in being his race to lose.
Congresswoman, anything that I forgot to ask you that you want to mention before we wrap?
I think this was a very succinct, fun interview, and I really appreciate you for having me on.
Hopefully you'll be back. There's a lot happening in the next coming months, and I wanna thank you for your doggedness and your commitment to doing the job right, and being a representative for the people. I believe you're in it for the right reasons, and continued success.
Thank
All
you
the
so
best
much.
to
I
you, council
appreciate
member.
you.
Talk soon. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.